Welcome back, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. Time for another fireside chat with the experts. We'll be doing another Stump the Chumps today. I imagine we're going to be going through one question because it's quite a big one, complicated one for you today. Maybe it'll be even considered stumping you because it's pretty much impossible to answer. So our question today, yeah.
What is the question?
Question today is, how much does an X-ray machine cost?
Come on.
Done? I win? Call it a day?
What's the best answer, Glenn? Yes?
Right? Just like everything else X-ray related. It depends. First question you'd want to ask after that question to further, get to the bottom of what are you trying to do with it? What do you expect out of your X-ray system? If you're looking for a budget system, that's an alternative, and you can get a system in the $15,000, $20,000 price range for the most part. Maybe a used refurbished system, right? If you're looking for more autonomous, then you're going to spend a little bit more money because there's quite a bit more mechanicals involved. But in all cases, in all X-ray systems, we have some basic components that are fairly expensive, right? So regardless of whether the system is a benchtop system at 16 inches by 16 inches by 16, or a cabinet that you would literally drive a forklift into, the basic components of the X-ray system remain the same. We need an image detector of some sort, and we need an X-ray tube of some sort. Whether it's a high-end, high kV system or a low energy system, all of those components are congruent across the X-ray product lines, regardless of medical, industrial, security. So there is a set cost of entry, depending on what you want to do with it. That's where things become a little bit more complicated. And we need to explore what your expectations are in a more depth and in a lot more detail.
Yeah, this question reminds me of the old saying that quality is priceless, right? If quality is indeed priceless and X-ray is a key component for quality assurance, then the price of an X-ray machine would be irrelevant, right?
Free.
Health, right? It's irrelevant. But quality is not priceless, right? Every time I hear that, it reminds me of the Ford Pinto. Perhaps most in our audience are too young to remember the Ford Pinto, but actually it was a long time ago in the 70s. I have to remind myself the 70s are a long time ago, but so Ford in the early 70s had an amazing product line, right? With the Mustang, the Fairlane, the Galaxy. The Galaxy is one of the cars they used to call the land yacht, right? I mean, they were huge, gas guzzling, muscle, American muscle. And the oil crisis happened. What that means is that the oil price just went skyrocketed. And all of a sudden, the product line was undesirable, right? Because the gas prices were very high and their showrooms had nothing but gas guzzlers. So, and at the same time, you had the Japanese coming in, Honda and Toyota, which for those who were not alive at the time, they were tiny, irrelevant companies selling dinky little cars that Americans didn't want. All of a sudden, everyone wanted those small cars that were very fuel efficient. So Ford had to turn on a dime and design a fuel efficient car, which was the Pinto. And I think you should take them 40 some months to develop a car, and the Pinto was developed in 20 some months, right? It was like super fast, and they had to cut corners. One of the corners they cut, the fact that if the car was rear-ended just at the right angle, the car would catch on fire, right? And so that's one of the best examples that and what gets complicated in the story is that they found out later that they kind of knew that were, the things caught on fire based on some reports they found from the engineering team. So quality does have a price, right? And people put a price on quality every day. And that's why this question is relevant. What has changed over the years, definitely from the 80s to the 90s and, on the 20s again, is that the Xray has always been seen as a cost center, right? It's something you have to have, to, make somebody happy or to check a box with a customer. So Xray has been a cost center, has been seen as a cost center for decades. And what has changed is with augmented connectivity, especially in the factory floor, with better algorithms we have in how we can not only measure things in the image, but we can provide interpretation of what's happening in the line on your process using an X-ray image. So we've seen the data centers, right? So data generator. So X-ray machine, if you can see that as a data generator, right? And if you now can turn data into information, because information is data you can act on, right? Once you do that, now X-ray is no longer a cost center, right? Now it can be a very important information generation center. And for companies that are smart and they can figure that out, you can quickly turn an X-ray into a piece of equipment that provides a very, very fast return on investment. But again, it's that non-trivial bridge between data and information, right? If you're just collecting data and that data is, when I talk about data, X-ray images of VGAs or pipes or whatever else you're inspecting, if that data just sits in a box and stays there, that's definitely the wrong way to look at an X-ray machine. Then an X-ray machine becomes very expensive, right? Because it's not returning anything. On the other hand, if the company can, and that's something we help companies every day, is how to bridge that gap. And once you do that, the ROI comes in, and then with the return on investment, the price becomes an easy piece of the conversation to address.
Right. That connectivity has been alluded to over the years in the electronics industry.
Yeah.
Really happened successfully. It's been an uphill battle to get industry to adopt this connectivity, right? But we have been very adamant about the connectivity of the system, and the connectivity being part of the return on investment. So we do have several packages that do offer not only a lot of data on the back end after the X-ray, but we input quite a bit of data. Our main product right now, or our newest product, would be our business intelligence package. The business intelligence package enables you to put a lot of data and track a lot of data like usage, customers. Yeah. So we've been singing this song for quite a while as far as return on investment based on data, and it's all. I mean, we have an X-ray system that's capable of capturing quite a bit of data, and with some of the different technologies that we use, we can put that data to work fairly easily. I mean, one of the key things that I really was amazed with Creative Electron was early on when I found out about before I worked for Creative Electron, right, joined the team, was the database feature. That database feature, people say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's great, and move on. But if you explore just the database feature, which was a 10-year-old product on our part,
yeah,
10 years ago, Creative Electron designed that to go along with the counterfeit detection, which again was capturing large amounts of data. That database feature is a phenomenal feature on its own that if used properly with some connectivity as far as networking into your system, it has a lot of potential itself. And that's just a standard package. That's what we would consider an easy and a good way to store images, but it has a lot of capability on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think eventually one day, we're going to see, especially if you talk about SMT, and there's a whole conversation about Industry 4.0, and I definitely am tired of talking about Industry 4.0 because everyone talks about it, so we're not going to talk about it. But I think what I really like about this equipment that applies to surface mount, offline PCB, and everything else we do is the counterfeit detection included, is the thought of the system as to provide business intelligence, right? As a key performance indicator. So you can get a KPI out of the Xray machine, and we have the whole dashboard with our KPIs. But it's interesting how as you can manage the floor or your inspection process or manufacturing process in a similar way that you manage your business, right? And if you can set the right KPIs, you can have quite a bit of transparency, right, to see what's going on. So that's all. That is part of the value, right? That part of the equation. And I think your original question is how much an Xray machine costs, right? And then a part of this conversation that Glenn you started to answer, I think you have to connect with the type of sample you're looking at, right, Glenn? How big it is, how dense it is, how many samples you're going to be looking at per hour, per minute, per second. You're going to be looking at, if you have a box, you're going to be looking at one box a day, or you're going to look at one box every second, right? So that's going to define how those samples are going to get in and out of the Xray cabinet. If you need an Xray cabinet, right? Or you have to build a room to look at your sample. If, for example, you're looking at engines or blades for helicopter, right? The type of, you don't have a cabinet anymore. Now it's an open air system with a nice Carestream plate and a mobile Xray source, battery powered Xray source. So, that's the reason why our sales team, right, has engineers, right? Have people who've been more, in the business for many years, because it's hard to go on Amazon and click an Xray machine and just, oh yeah, that's the one I want. Boop. Some customers have, right, Glenn, the level of experience, but they're few, most of the time it's a conversation, right? Then we can understand, what they're trying to accomplish. And then with that, we can pair the right solution to them. I don't know, is there any I wish you could put a machine on Amazon and just have people buy on Amazon, but I don't see that happening, maybe one day.
The cost of a mistake is very expensive in that point, right? So you have $100,000 invested, let's say an arbitrary number, $100,000 invested in an Xray system that is a top of the line Xray system, but not ideal for your application, right?
Yeah.
If you had talked to someone a little more savvy in the physics or in the combination of Xray tubes, detectors, image processing, you may have been able to get by with a $35,000 Xray system, right? One of the major things that seem kind of flippant in when you're trying to help a customer is, they get sometimes bogged down in details, how many megapixels, and all the details. Bottom line is, can you see what you need to see? Right?
Yeah.
What you need to see at $35,000, $40,000, investing $200,000 into an Xray system, although you have the capability to see some phenomenal things, it's not necessary. Your return on investment is going to be slim to none for many years in advance, right?
Yeah.
In the same token, if you are cheap and you spend $20,000, $30,000 on the wrong X-ray system, it's not going to do the job for you, and you're not going to be able to control your processes. You're still running blind. You may as well just shine a flashlight at it, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, we see that often, right? People have a budget, and but they don't know if they want to buy a Ferrari or a dump truck, right? The price is the same, you know.
right.
Fine spray. And oftentimes we realize what they really need is a minivan to go to Costco, right? Every weekend.
Exactly.
Right. But they have an image, they need a dump truck or Ferrari, right? And if you buy Ferrari and what you need is a dump truck, you're going to get screwed, right? You're going to be very happy. And vice versa. If you try to go to Home Depot and get, half a ton of lumber when a Ferrari, you're going to you have issues as well. So it's the pairing of the resolution is what really matters. And sometimes we are more than happy to say, we don't have a solution for you. Go call somebody else, right? And they have a better solution for it than we do. I'd rather say that than pushing a product that doesn't work on a customer, have someone upset at us later, right? Life's too short. So might as well get them happy, get them what they need, and in the future they might call back.
Right. Not that we don't go out of our way to find a solution.
Yeah, I think we do a pretty good job on that as well. Yeah.
A really well-rounded toolbox in X-ray sources, X-ray detectors, cabinets. We build our own cabinets locally in-house. We have the ability to wrap sheet metal around X-ray sources and detectors. Having our own software team on staff gives us the ability to customize some of those algorithms. So we have a very deep and broad, choice of.
Yeah. It's a good point. I mean, speaking of price, right? Price of an X-ray machine, how much it costs. You have what I call commodity components, right? You have your source, your sensor, your cabinet, and something that moves the samples inside the cabinet or in and out of the cabinet, right? A lot of these things are, your integrator, right? Or you can make a piece of it, or you can buy subsystems and you build your own, or your private label, whatever you want to do. Different companies do different ways, but the real differentiator ends up being software, right? Which is at the end of the day, the smarts of it, right? What's going to really drive that value proposition that we discussed earlier. And that's being, I think, a major water divider, right, for in the X-ray industry nowadays. It's companies that have and don't have the ability to customize software or develop tools, right, to meet specific requirements from different customers.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have, you're just selling basically you private labeling, like our friends in Asia do, right? They private label a box and that's it, right?
Right. It's just a standard bunch of tools. They work for 90% or even 80, maybe 80% of the population. Good enough, right?
Yeah. Well, for a specific market, right? That's the thing. But
market,
the way it is. Yeah. So in general, the major drivers, cost drivers, right, would be the X-ray source and the sensor. The X-ray source is fairly straightforward. If you want to think of pricing, is the more power, usually the more it costs. The more resolution, the more it costs, and the pricing is exponential. So low power is lower cost, and as you increase the power, it goes up quite rapidly.
Right.
And with that, you compound the resolution, which is spot size. I think we discussed a few weeks ago is what spot size is how sharp your image is going to look, right? The bigger the spot size, the fuzzier your image is going to look. So you want a very small spot size, but that at a higher power costs quite a bit of money. Why? Because it's hard and the volume is low, right? I mean, relatively speaking, if every iPhone needed an X-ray source, right? So X-ray source are probably much cheaper nowadays, but they're not, right? The volume is still relatively low. And the whole technology related to vacuum sealing and the whole manufacturing of those devices is in control of a few companies in the world. They've been doing this for a while. I mean, a lot of companies claim to do it, but then reliability and how long the tube is going to last is the issue, right? So it's one of those things where lower cost can be very expensive going forward. Like the guys at Glenn say, "Oh yeah, I found a machine on eBay, super good deal." So either you got a cheap X-ray machine or a very expensive bolt anchor, right? One of the two. And it's usually a bolt anchor.
Someone else's hazardous waste.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's very expensive bolt anchor that you have to deal with. Yeah. And we get, not very often, but we get, I bought your machine on eBay. Can you guys fix it? Well, it's, if you're talking about systems that have been obsolete for a while now, right? With computer systems that are obsolete. I mean, we do our best to keep those things alive, but at some point you just have to start upgrading, right? Because if you're running Windows 2000, now you can't connect that to any network, right? Oh, I have Windows 2000, but I need to access Dropbox. Well, but my IT doesn't let me. Well, nothing I can do, right? You got to upgrade your Windows to latest Windows. So with that comes other challenges, right? So it's at the end of the day, right? The price embeds all this conversation, right? Support and everything else has to be included. So it's not just a number; it's everything that we use to build that number. Right? Does that make sense?
Right. And on that same token, take a look at the longevity of an X-ray system, right? A fairly decent X-ray system with a good detector, a good X-ray tube, and the proper software with some upgrades paths in the computer, you can get 7-10 years out of an X-ray system, active use, depending on how many hours a day you run it. There's limitations. If you're running it 24/7, you're going to get a lot less use because, again, as we talked a while ago, X-ray tubes are consumables. Every time you turn it on, you're boiling some electrons off the filament. Whether it's a closed X-ray tube or an open X-ray tube, it still has a consumable portion or a consumable function, right? So if normal use, say 8 hours a day, your actual X-ray on is going to be probably half of that for most people. So we're looking at 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So you do have with the right choice. And that's why it's important to make the right choice early on. Because unfortunately, used X-ray systems lose their value very quickly. So if you were to buy an X-ray system, make the wrong choice based on price or based on misinformation, you're going to have an X-ray system that's going to lose quite a bit of value. It's going to make buying a luxury car and driving it off the lot look like a bargain.
Yeah.
So because it essentially, like I said, it depends on the actual use, and you could get an X-ray system. You could get you buy an X-ray system. You don't know what the actual history of the X-ray system is, whether it was shipped all over the world, if it was dropped off the back of a truck. There are all kinds of issues that you could have with buying a used X-ray system. And so you really want to make the right choice, or at least an informed choice. And informed, it doesn't necessarily mean a comparison on a spreadsheet, right? Some of the most costly mistakes I've seen made over the years is companies and individuals that rely on a spreadsheet and specsmanship, right? To buy an X-ray system. Really do need to prove it out, and you need to look at back to again, will this do what I need it to do for the amount of money I want to spend, right?
Yeah.
You would make allowances either up or down, depending on what has to happen there to get your outcome. Comparing, boxes on a spreadsheet is rarely the smart way to buy an X-ray system, in my opinion, anyway. A lot of room for mistakes, and there's a lot of room for specsmanship as well, right?
Yeah, because the table doesn't, it has a very hard time expressing all these different things that we discussed, right, properly. And I think that's a result of the result. People sometimes, buyers have a tendency of using spreadsheets because it is a complex sale, right? So that's a way to try to get some grasp on what's going on, right? Putting numbers on the spreadsheets like a way to, okay, now I know what's going on. Now I can see, I can add this line up and multiply the column, and I get a number, and whoever has the biggest number wins, right? That works for some things in life, especially if you're comparing commodities, right? If you are, on the other hand, buying a piece of equipment that you're going to keep for 10, 15, 20 years, right? I mean, if you ask Dave Phillips, our customer service guy, I mean, he keeps machines going for 30 years, right? And they just keep on going. So if that's the kind of relationship you're going to get into, a table might not be the best place to start, right? Just like probably you don't choose a spouse based on a table, right?
Well, maybe.
Or maybe people do. I don't know. It's a new world. I haven't done that in a while, so I don't really know. But maybe they do. A decision matrix for your next, next lover. But so if you're talking about this long-term relationship that you're going to have with piece of equipment, you're better off talking to people who've been doing this. Not only us, talk to everybody else, and then have an idea of and try to decommoditize, right? Instead of trying to make that into a commodity, trying to understand the nuances and the features of these different systems and which one works best for you.
Right, and for the most part, if you're dealing with someone that's somewhat has your best interest in mind as a customer, they will help you understand some of the subtleties. If if you ask and you have an interest, they will help you understand those subtleties.
Yeah.
Here's the difference between X and Y, and here's the indicator that would make sense for your application, right? So it's purchasing an X-ray system is quite an interactive, endeavor. There's no way around that. And if it's not interactive, and you are expected, well, when you're going to give me the PO, here's what you need. That may not necessarily be the right choice. Might want to dig a little further, do a little research, because some of the software that's even available today hasn't changed in 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
It does what it needs to do. It was probably really good when it came out, and it's more than serviceable, but there are other alternatives and other options.
Well, like they say, right, Glenn, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and that always leads me back to the conversation you have early on with some folks, especially at trade shows. Oh, I don't need X-ray. I don't do BGAs, right? So they're looking at this very narrow tunnel, and all they see is an X-ray with a bunch of balls on a hidden interconnect component, right? Without looking at the customer returns, without looking at the ability to look at R&D,
Counterfeits,
inspection, counterfeit inspection, making sure that your vendors are on the up and up, right? So it's rare that an X-ray system would be used just for BGAs. And if you are using an X-ray system for BGAs, you're not getting a return on your investment. That's all there is to it. There are so many other options that an X-ray system will fit and help. Right?
Yeah, but that's because the sucky job X-ray companies have done over the years telling people that Xray is a cost center, right?
Yeah, right. It goes back to that.
It goes back to that. So if it's a cost center, well, I'm going to buy one unless I absolutely need to buy one, right? If I don't have a customer with a gun in my head saying, hey, you got to buy an Xray machine or you don't get my contract.
Right.
I don't want to buy one.
I always get a kick out of the customer that calls frantic. Hey, my customer just sent me an Xray telling me that my product is no good. What do I do? Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
Got caught.
exactly. So
Or the customer says, hey, I have, I need to Xray every single board on the line, the whole board, right? And then you say, I think you need to
every
work on your
joint on the board. Oh, no, you don't really.
No, you don't. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Anyway, David, did we answer the question?
We are over time. No, you didn't answer the question.
Oh, sorry.
Like I said, I think I won.
That's subjective. That's buying an Xray system. Very subjective.
All right. Well, thank you too. I appreciate it. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, it helps.
It's not a simple question at all.
Right.
Well, the question is simple. The answer is complicated.
Yeah, there you go.
Questions are always simple.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone has any more questions, please let us know. Happy to continue answering them like this. And we'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Thanks, Len. Thanks, Bill.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Quay, what you want?